Hi everyone, I'm Andy and this is the AI Breakdown. Welcome to your weekly news edition, where I'll cover what happened in AI last week and why it matters. Coming up, the big theme this week is that the government has become the gatekeeper of frontier AI, and that runs through the first three stories. OpenAI shows its next models to Washington before anyone else. Anthropic gets one model switched back on, and another left in the dark. Then a serious accusation about China copying Claude, the race to float, your GitHub bill landing with a thud, and a Claude that lives in your Slack. So let's start with OpenAI, and a launch that tells you how much has changed. Last week, OpenAI previewed its next generation of models, 3 of them. Sol, the flagship, plus 2 smaller ones called Terra and Luna. Normally, a new model from OpenAI lands with a blog post, and you can go and try it the same afternoon. Not this time. Before any of it went public, OpenAI showed the models and what they can do to the US government. And at the government's request, it opened access to a small group of vetted partners. Around 20 companies, all signed off by Washington. Everyone else waits. Why the caution? Sol is OpenAI's most capable model yet at finding software vulnerabilities. In testing, it could find the flaws and build parts of an exploit, though OpenAI says it couldn't run a full attack on a hardened target on its own. That's a capability that's genuinely useful to a security team and genuinely useful to an attacker. So the government wants a say before it's everywhere. The most advanced AI ships on Washington's clock, not the labs, for now at least. A year ago, the gate was whether the model worked. Now the gate is whether the government's comfortable letting you have it. To be clear, OpenAI says it does not want this kind of government-controlled access process to become the long-term default, and broader availability is expected in the coming weeks. Axios also frames this as an interim step while the US works out a more formal model evaluation process. But even if this is temporary, it is still a useful signal. The frontier model rollout is no longer just a product decision. It is becoming a policy decision too. This episode is sponsored by Notify Technology, a health and safety software partner, helping teams run incident management, audits and inspections, and risk assessments in one place. And with Notify Spark, their AI companion, they're streamlining incident reporting and investigations, saving time, reducing admin load, and helping teams act faster on what matters. Learn more at notifytechnology.com. Staying with OpenAI, because the same week it made a bigger bet on the defense side of all this. OpenAI expanded a program it calls Daybreak. The pitch is simple. For years, the hard part of security was finding the holes. OpenAI reckons AI has flipped that, and the hard part now is fixing them fast enough. So Daybreak is built around patching. A few concrete bits. The full version of its security model, GPT 5.5 Cyber, is now out, but only to verified defenders with extra monitoring on top. Its code scanning tool, Codex Security, has been through more than 30 million commits across 30,000 code bases since the spring, and says it's logged over 500,000 fixes. And there's a new effort called Patch the Planet, run with a respected security firm called Trail of Bits, that pays researchers to help fix bugs in the open source software the whole internet quietly runs on. Things like curl, Go and Python. More than 30 projects so far. There's also a partner program, so the security companies you might already use, like CrowdStrike, Sophos, or Fortinet, can build OpenAI's models into their own products. We talk a lot on this show about AI as a security threat. This is the other side of the ledger. AI sold as the defense. The bigger point is that security is becoming one of the first real tests of AI's promise as an operator, not just an analyst. Finding a flaw is useful, explaining it is better. But fixing it, testing the patch, and getting it into the open source supply chain that everyone depends on, that's where the value is. That's also where the risk sits. Because once AI starts touching production security work, trust, oversight, and accountability matter a lot more. Now, the other side of that government story, and it's Anthropic. A couple of weeks back, I told you the US government had forced Anthropic to pull 2 of its newest models, Fable 5 and Mythos 5, just days after launch, an export control order over a security concern. Well, there's been some movement. Last week, the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, signed off on bringing one of them back, Mythos 5, the more powerful, locked-down model, is being switched back on for about 100 trusted US companies, agencies, and critical infrastructure defenders. The general-purpose one, Fable 5, the model ordinary businesses would actually use, is still dark. As I'm recording this, it's been offline for over 2 weeks, with no firm return date. Reports say it could come back any day, but they've been saying that since it was pulled. And this is where, for me, it stops adding up. I think governments having a say over the most dangerous AI is sensible. Done right, I'm for it. This wasn't done right. They pulled a general model that was already live to millions over a single narrow jailbreak that Anthropic says rival models can do too. And the unevenness is hard to ignore. Anthropic gets frozen, while the same fortnight OpenAI gets a government blessing to preview its new models. For you, the lesson's blunt. A model you build on can now be switched off by someone who isn't you and isn't the vendor. If a core process depends on one specific model, you want a fallback that isn't at the mercy of an export control letter. Right, different corner of AI now, China, and a serious accusation. Anthropic has told 2 US senators that Alibaba, the Chinese tech giant, ran a big operation to copy Claude. The claim is that operators linked to Alibaba and its QuenAI lab used nearly 25,000 fake accounts to ask Claude almost 29 million questions over about 6 weeks this spring. The goal, according to Anthropic, was to harvest Claude's best answers and use them to train a rival. This has a name. It's called distillation. You point your cheaper model at a stronger one, collect its outputs at scale, and train yours to imitate them. You get a copy of the leader without paying to build it. Anthropic says the accounts went after exactly its crown jewels, the software engineering, agentic reasoning, and long horizon tasks. Now, the caveat matters. This is an accusation in a letter. Alibaba hasn't responded to the specifics, and nobody outside Anthropic has verified it, so hold it loosely for now. But if it's true, it's a big deal. This is not just another small lab trying to catch up on the cheap. This is Anthropic pointing at one of China's biggest technology companies. And the framing is national. Anthropic's argument is that hundreds of billions of dollars of American AI investment is being turned into a free leg up for a competitor overseas. If that's borne out, it's an industrial-scale IP problem and a political one. Keep an eye on whether Alibaba answers and whether this turns into more than a letter. Let's talk money and the race to go public. Both of the big AI labs want to float, and last week the timeline split in an interesting way. Quick recap. Anthropic filed its paperwork back in early June off the back of a funding round that valued it at about $965 billion. OpenAI filed about a week later, with banks reportedly aiming for something near $1 trillion. Then last week, the New York Times reported that OpenAI is now leaning towards waiting until 2027. The reasons given are jittery markets, and Sam Altman not wanting to list below $1 trillion. Anthropic, meanwhile, is still reportedly aiming to get out this year. If it happens, that would make it the first pure-play frontier AI lab to hit the public markets already valued at something close to $1 trillion. SpaceX obviously sits outside that comparison. Huge tech-adjacent company, yes, but not solely an AI lab. Whoever goes first matters more than it sounds. The first one out has to open its books. Real revenue, real losses, and once those numbers are public, every analyst will use them as the yardstick for the whole sector. The second mover spends its big day defending someone else's maths. You know my view on the valuations. The technology's real, the demand's real, the need for all this infrastructure is real. What I'm not sure about is whether these prices have already banked years of success that hasn't shown up yet, especially with all the circular money sloshing between these companies. An IPO is where that finally meets daylight. So this October could be the most honest week AI's had in a while. Next, the economics of AI coding are starting to look very different. For the last couple of years, tools like GitHub Copilot have mostly been sold like normal software. You paid per user, per month, and the pitch was simple. Give your developers an AI assistant and they will ship faster. But that model is starting to strain because the tools themselves have changed. Copilot is not just autocomplete anymore. Increasingly, it is an agent. You do not just ask it to finish a line of code. You ask it to understand a repo, plan a change, edit multiple files, run tests, explain failures, and try again. That kind of work is much more useful. It is also much more expensive to run. As I've covered previously, on the 1st of June, GitHub changed the Copilot model. The subscription did not disappear, but the all-you-can-eat field did. Copilot now comes with a monthly allowance of GitHub AI credits, and once you burn through those, heavier usage can start costing more. Under the hood, that usage is measured in tokens, what you send to the model, what it sends back, and all the context it has to chew through along the way. And this is the broader trend in AI software development. We are moving from paying for seats to paying for work. Every repo-wide scan, every agentic coding session, every automated development task has compute behind it. The more the model reads, reasons, edits, and retries, the more it costs. The 30th of June marks the end of the first full calendar month under GitHub's new system, and the reaction has been loud. Developers doing heavy agentic work, where you hand Copilot a chunky task and it churns through a repo, have been posting projected costs far above what they used to pay. Some reports show jumps from tens of dollars a month into the hundreds, and in some cases much higher. The caveat is that a lot of these are projected bills or cost estimator screenshots, not necessarily final invoices, but the direction of travel is very clear. The basic stuff, like autocomplete and next edit suggestions, is still included for paid users. It is the autonomous, do-it-all-for-me work that runs the meter hot. And this is the bit finance teams need to understand. A coding agent is not like buying another seat of Slack. It is more like spinning up cloud infrastructure. The more work you ask it to do, the more compute it burns, and eventually someone has to pay for that. So if your team is leaning on AI coding agents, do not wait for the invoice to explain the pricing model. Set budgets. Watch usage. Treat it like a metered utility the way you would treat AWS, electricity, or anything else that quietly gets expensive when nobody's looking. AI coding is no longer just a productivity story, it is becoming a unit economics story. Right, a new product now, and a glimpse of where the agent stuff is heading. Anthropic launched something called Claude Tag last week. It's Claude, living inside Slack, the chat app loads of teams run their day on. It's in beta for now, on the Claude team and enterprise plans. What's different is how it works. Instead of each person having their own private Claude, there's one shared Claude sitting in a channel that the whole team can talk to. You type a Claude, give it a job in plain English, and it breaks that job into steps, works through them on its own, then posts back what it's done. Turn on what they call ambient mode, and it'll chip in unprompted, flagging things it reckons you need to know, chasing threads that have gone quiet. So it starts to feel like a junior colleague who's always in the room. Now, before you panic or get excited, depending on your job, the controls are decent. Admins decide exactly what data and which tools it can touch, channel by channel, and can cap how much it's allowed to spend. That scoping matters, because an agent that can act on its own, with access to your company's tools, is also a thing that can go wrong on its own. This is the direction of travel, agents you hand work to and walk away from. I'd treat Tag, and tools like it, as worth a proper pilot. One team, tight permissions, so you learn how delegating to an agent actually feels before you let it loose more widely. So, pulling the week together, the thread running through the first half of this episode is that the government has become the gatekeeper of frontier AI, who gets the newest model, and when and whether a model you already use stays switched on is now partly a decision made in Washington. If your business is building on this stuff, that's a new kind of risk to plan for, sitting right next to cost and reliability. The second half is more down to earth. The bills are real, frontier labs are still worried about Chinese copycats, and the agents are getting genuinely capable. If you do one thing this week, go and find out what you're actually depending on. Which model, on whose terms, at what cost, because this year's surprises are about who controls AI and what it costs to run. That's all for this week's AI Roundup. If you found value in this breakdown, please leave a rating and hit subscribe. See you next week.